Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another edition of the newly renamed GitOps Guide to the Galaxy.
That's right.
Christian, I am Chris Short, executive producer of OpenShift TV. Christian Hernandez is the GitOps Extraordinaire. Christian, you want to talk about the name change here?
Yeah. So, I wanted to start off by kind of giving a little announcement, little thing that we're going to be doing here. We're rebranding. Um, so but it's not like New Coke, right? It's the joke we've actually been making internally, right? So we're getting a new name. It's going to be called GitOps Guide to the Galaxy. Same, same content, same feel, same everything else. We're actually just doing kind of a little bit of a rebranding, right? And this is actually good news, as um, a lot of you don't know, is that we were actually doing this kind of off the cuff, Chris, right?
Yeah,
We were
pretty
doing
much.
the whole Twitch thing. The whole thing was actually just not even within with like cloud platforms BU, but actually just within our team.
Yeah.
And it's actually grown so much that Red Hat Corporate is picking it up. So now it's actually, it's actually real. So it's
Yeah,
kind of exciting.
it's going to be very real, folks.
It's going to be very real.
There will be unique branding for it. There will be unique graphics, the whole nine yards. So
there's a whole team behind it. It's like not just us doing things, which is really
right.
cool.
Like we'll have people helping us find people to talk to, potentially all manner of things. So it's a good thing for everybody.
Yes, that's right. And part of that is it's a rebranding, right? And this, you guys are getting, it's officially official the next episode, right? I figured I just
fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed, right? Actually, I just got a message and they're actually doing the marketing stuff. They're actually starting to promote it right now as we speak. So it's actually pretty cool. It's actually wheels are in motion. So for those of you who tune in live, I decided to give you a little bit of a fair warning and a little bit of some good news on our end. So
yeah, no, it's good news. It's we've taken this idea, we're all stuck at home, we need to do something, and it's grown into something that like the main marketing teams at Red Hat are starting to appreciate. So that's awesome for us.
Yeah. So it's all good. And thank you everyone for watching and getting
it's all y'all,
such a buzz.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. You guys got such a buzz that started off with the Level Up Hour, and they also picked up Andrew's Ask an Admin show. Now they're picking our show up. So it's really they started grabbing some of the buzzword some of the ones that were causing the biggest buzz. So thank you to all of you who watch. And yeah, so cool. And so then I actually pretty excited for the name GitOps Guide to the Galaxy, right? It's we're going straight to the moon, right? Straight to the moon, like like the Wall Street bet guys. We're also going on the moon as well, right? So it's GitOps Guide to the Galaxy.
That whole thing. Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. All right. This topic, when do we get swag? Actually, it would be nice to get swag. That's gonna be something else.
I will take a note to work on that, to be honest with you.
It'd be cool to get some swag. Thank you. So the topic today, right? I kind of wanted to do a back-to-back show, but it didn't work out that way. And actually was it's not like it was a bad thing that didn't work out that way. We had the GitOps the official GitOps operator for OpenShift. So the OpenShift GitOps operator went tech preview. So we just had to do a show about it, right? So so I kind of sandwiched that into these two topics. So today's topic is MachineConfigs, right? So before we talked about the MachineConfig operator, right? So machine sets and machines. How to handle those kind of in a GitOps friendly way, right? We kind of explored that a little bit, and I was going to do a MachineConfigs specifically back to back, but we had Bose on doing that. So if you guys, I think this is the Bitly. Hopefully that's the Bitly. So in case you guys, yes, it is.
For now,
didn't catch that show, go ahead and we were just talking about Bitly, right? And I was like, does all this work? So I guess it does. So go ahead, I put the link in the chat. If you didn't catch that episode, you can go ahead and watch that, or catch any other past episodes. So I'm gonna kind of do, what am I doing here? There we go. I hope this is the right desktop. I always
Oh my God. This morning was like Zoom was like, it was degrading in how well it could share desktop, like during the show. It was crazy.
Yeah. It was. So hopefully you see my slides. I'm looking at the preview over here while I'm looking at chat. It looks like the right screen came up. So we're going to talk about MachineConfigs and GitOps, right? So I think I'm going to go again an overview of the machine config operator and MachineConfigs, and kind of just bring it all together. And then I have an example of some things, right? Like keyboard time, like we always talk about. So I try not to bore all of you with a bunch of slideware, but I think it's important to kind of understand what's going on first before we start doing start hacking away, right? So in the previous episode, I talked about the cloud API, right, and the machine config, right? How in a completely automated way, how are we bootstrapping some of these nodes in order to become part of the Kubernetes cluster, right? And so then we have this concept of the machines and machine sets, similar to what we have with deployments and replica sets and pods, right? So there's a hierarchical thing coming out where we have a machine set that controls any number of machines, and those machines then turn into a node, right?
Right.
And so, you have machine set controls a machine, and what is a machine, right? So a machine is just kind of declaratively say how is a node, how do I build a node, right? Or how do I, the definition of what a node is. So for example, it'll say things like, 8 CPUs, 16 gigs of RAM, 120 gigabyte hard drive, right? So it's kind of, it kind of just says, all right, I want you to build me a VM, right? In most cases.
Most cases.
Most cases of these parameters, right? And then you control the scale that way, right? So a machine set, you can say, I want 3 of this type of VM. Mm-hmm. But once the VM's up, then we have to turn it into a node, right? So that's that relationship, right? Got a machine set that builds a machine, and Washari's here. Nice. Hello.
Yeah. No, I was gonna mention that. Sorry.
Yeah. He's on. He's one of our oldest. I think he was the first fan, right? I think he's the fan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
one, maybe. Yeah.
Like if we ever make like cards, like like membership cards, he'll be like 1, right? Like he'll have the number 1. So I'm glad you're watching. So
yeah, it's great to have him here.
And so yes, that's right. It's great. He's a great guy. And so then I have like 5 machines, and then I want them to be nodes, right? But once the node is up, we need a way to configure it, right? And so this is where the machine config comes into place, right? So we have there's a concept in CoreOS called ignition, right? And I'm gonna try not to get too far, because like you can do a whole show about like machines I'm just talking about ignition, just itself,
just ignition,
right?
yes,
just ignition itself. But just to summarize, ignition sets up the node and it runs once on the first boot, right? So if you could think about cloud init,
yeah,
but it runs once. And another big difference is that it runs in init RAM, right? Init RAM FS. So it runs even before PID1 does. And the idea behind that is because CoreOS is, quote unquote, immutable. So I like to do what Andrew did in his show is, I'm doing air quotes, immutable. Yeah. Because you do kind of change it. It's not, it's not immutable doesn't mean read only. So
right, immutable is not read only for a reason.
Yeah. So it's you have to kind of decouple that idea. But anyways, coming back, see, I'm already diving down a rabbit hole. So
well, see, I was gonna go the machine node. Eventually it gets down to a pod, right? Like
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
look at it from that, right? Like it's just concentric rings going back in.
It's
down to that level. Yeah,
it's a hyperdimensional what do you call it?
3D chess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just what it's rings within rings, right?
Yeah.
But so ignition runs once on first boot, it never runs again, and its only job is to set up the operating system in terms of configuring it. So that is what MachineConfigs is based on, right? So as you see here, actually you don't see it here. You'll see it in MineConfig, right? You'll see a spec ignition version, blah blah blah. But this is how one OpenShift configures the node, and two, how you as an administrator or whoever, right, SRE, make changes to the operating system or add additional functionalities. So we have, you do things like create SSH keys, write files out, insert kernel argument, and
whatever you need,
whatever you need, right? So you can add it initially during the install, or you can do it after the fact as well.
Like if you're installing it on bare metal, for example, you could give it like all kinds of parameters about your hardware. That is,
exactly,
controllers, the whole 9 yards, right? Like
exactly, yeah, or like disk partitioning, things like that. And so we have the MachineConfig operator, whose job is to manage two things: is the MachineConfig controller and the MachineConfig server, right? So the MachineConfig controller, it's responsible for spinning up machines, and then the MachineConfig server is responsible for writing out the configurations. And then there is a daemon set to run on all nodes. So all nodes on masters, workers, infra, whatever, right? It's on all nodes. And it's a MachineConfig daemon, and what its job is to essentially say, hey, make sure this hash matches this hash, right? If there's a difference, it'll reread what the desired state is, write that out, and then reboot the node.
This is interesting. Waleed's asking, can I write things like add a user, groups,
technically,
those kinds of things? You could.
I mean, from a technical standpoint, you can. We always
whether or
not
it's useful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I like to think. So I mean, I've been working with OpenShift for a long time. I mean, at first it was kind of a paradigm shift, right? Because I came from the I came from the 2 world, right? OpenShift 2. Going from 2 to 3 was a paradigm shift, but that was easier for me for whatever reason. But from 3 to 4, it took a little while, and then after a while, I actually don't really manage the OS a lot. Like I honestly, I don't even really log into it, to the OS, to be honest with you.
OCD bug. That's the only time
I maybe
right?
to debug something that I can't see, but those are few and far between. But I understand there's people who have like, okay, well, we need a specific user for compliance purposes. All right, that's something you can do, right? But as Braided Silver said, 3 to 4 is super different. Like that's like a whole. You're talking about operators, and like that's a whole another thing. So but yes, you can use Ignition to create users. That's what its job is to do, right? Create users. If you actually I'll put in the chat later. I don't know if Chris, you want to look for it. You can look at the Ignition spec. If you just Google Ignition Core OS spec,
I got it. I'll find it.
You guys will see all the things that you can do. It's actually pretty cool. So so yeah, again, we can just rabbit hole just this one slide, right? And so there's the MachineConfigs, right? So there's like things like etc password, right? SSHD, MOTD, right? Cronny. Like you have like your individual configurations. And then there's this concept of what we call a MachineConfig pool, right? And it's actually doing exactly what it says. It just pulls together all your MachineConfigs into one blob, and it's just basically doing a says, hey, this file, this file, this file, this file, this file, this file, right? And it'll just as actually one big config. So what ends up happening is that the MachineConfig that gets applied is actually that one file, that one rendered worker, that one pool, not individual files. So it doesn't process each individual file. It just takes those individual files that you gave it, and it just gives it one big file that it does. And so and then so by default, there's two of them. When there's one for the control plane and there's one for the workers, and that's it, right? You can, create pools and stuff, and we'll go exploring a little bit here. And so one thing you need to keep in mind when you're doing machine config pools, so you wouldn't have, so you don't really, you're not doing, you wouldn't do this a lot, right? Adding machine configs,
right?
But you will do it. So especially like you said, Chris, when you're running this on like bare metal or like physical, when you have to add like kernel arguments to see a specific device, right? This show actually was started by William Caban. I don't know if you know him. He's the chief architect for the telco guys, telco vertical at Red Hat, and he, obviously, if you're in telco, you're doing a lot with hardware, so you have to add some of these configurations. One thing you need to keep in mind is that you can actually shoot yourself in the foot, and it doesn't, the machine config pool doesn't do like a merge, right? It doesn't do like a smart merge, right? So like in this example, if you're looking at the right hand side, you'll see that there's 50 MOTD and then 51 MOTD. Whatever you wrote in 51 is the one that gets used, right?
That will supersede.
Highest one wins. Yep. Highest one wins. So it doesn't like take the one you have before it and the one you have after it and do a weird merge. It doesn't do that. And so just keep in mind that the last one wins. And so we don't stop you from doing that. Right? We don't stop you from I think Eric Jacobs says, like, you want to cut your foot off with a spoon. We don't stop you from doing that. So, just keep in mind that there's a hierarchy, and it's based on like the number and the name, right? 0 through 9, A through Z, sort of thing. So the highest one wins. So, Andrew's on as well. He's there.
Yeah.
A lot of chatter going on here.
Waleed is trying to, like, his security team is doing that thing where we need a user on your box to run Nessus so we can, NIST standards, ISO standards, whatever. And that's it's like a common thing, right? And we basically tell people it needs to run in a container. Because guess what? None of the stuff you're looking for is probably going to be there.
It's going to be
right.
There.
Like it's not going to exist at all, right? Like, it's going to be in a completely different place or like Red Hat Core OS than it would be on like a RHEL box. So your security team is used to dealing with RHEL boxes. It's very important to tell people this is a container operating system that is based off RHEL. So you kind of have to make it work in a container.
It's another paradigm shift, right? Because it's like you have to think of these as appliances almost. And like if you have an F5, are you expected to install that user on an F5? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you going to SSH into F5 and do a user add? Like, you're not, right? So why is this any different? So and then I understand that's a paradigm shift. You just it just takes a while for enterprises to kind of just make that journey through the paradigm shift. So so the machine config server, essentially, so what ends up happening is that this rendered worker, this hash, right? This glob is what is used to create an ignition file. So this ignition file gets paired up with your RHEL Core OS image and gets merged together to create the VM, right? And so when the VM boots up on the Red Hat Core OS image, it'll say, hey, machine config server, give me the rendered worker hash, and I'll use that to configure myself. So it's pretty straightforward, but it's kind of, you have to kind of just think outside the box a little bit for how we were setting up these nodes.
So I put someone asked, is there a diagram to help security folks understand this paradigm shift? I put the architecture docs for Arcos in there. I don't know if we have a diagram per se. I'm sure there's one floating around.
I'm sure there is.
Like,
I think actually Andrew and I, for actually tried to start one a long time ago, and for some reason it fell off.
I have some slides from Kirsten. Let me find them real quick.
Oh, that may be good from Kirsten too.
Yeah.
She's like,
so if you haven't watched Kirsten on the channel before, she'll be on In the Clouds, the first episode of In the Clouds, starting not next week, the week after, I think. I forget. It's the 4th or the 11th. But she did do a great presentation for that already, and I'm trying to find it.
She's great. Anytime I have those kinds of questions,
if you got a security question,
first one I ask.
She's the person that's working on like CIS benchmarks for us, and those kinds
of
things.
So if you're security conscious, she's like that's definitely a show you should catch.
So compliance operators are what you're looking for as far as the thing, and Welding knows that. But I need to figure out what is the best thing to show.
What is the best thing?
So compliance. I'm looking through the slide deck. I'm hoping that like one of these slides is going to be like the thing.
Yeah.
So we're trying to build these CIS benchmarks. They're in OpenSCAP stuff too, right? Like and she's talking about going through that. Okay.
So there's like 8 people looking for stuff right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So okay, I can give you the compliance roadmap. Like for 4.6, we had STIG. We're working on CIS and FSMA partial. FSMA moderate partial. The first half of this year, like PCI DSS, ISO 2701, HIPAA, FSMA moderate, and the Australia Essential 8. Long term to be determined.
Oh, the Essential 8 or the Hateful 8?
Is it the Hateful 8? Oh no, that's a movie.
No, that's a movie. Yeah, exactly.
you and your LA people.
Exactly. Yeah. So like I was saying, like we can definitely go down a hole here.
Like this is a 22 slides plus extras in the back kind of deal.
Yeah. So plus extras in the back. Yeah, exactly. Plus after the thank you, there's like 40 more slides.
Yeah.
Cool. So just to kind of close this up here, the MachineConfig server, the idea is to massively make identical nodes, essentially. So you got that one hash that's spread across all your existing workers and new workers, and and you don't have to worry about it. So this is kind of like the conversation of like, where does like GitOps come into play? So you have the rendered worker hash, and that actually gets updated automatically. And this is this is kind of the same conversation that we had, again, if you look at past episodes, with the operator, right? The operator, GitOps and operator world, the exact same thing. It's like your point of demarcation should be things that you control and not what operators control, right? So if operators control things, you probably should keep your hands off of that. Everything else that you use to interact with the operator, you can actually put that in Git, right? So, and that's the kind of the balancing act that you have between what's what you put in Git and what you don't, right? And I think the that's kind of the idea also that I've been going with, and so as Gerald Noon said it, for those who don't know, he's an architect in our Canada team. In one of my favorite Canadians, says, this is a journey. So like my opinion will change. And I think that's very true. My opinion will change, but for right now, my opinion is that you have, you let the operators operate, and everything else, how you interface with that is how you work inside of Git with the GitOps workflow. So, kind of closing up, the MachineConfig daemon actually prevents drift, right? Because so if there's like a change or something else, MachineConfig daemon will reconcile that and then reboot your nodes. I keep saying reboot your nodes because most changes require your nodes to be rebooted, right? Like if you're going to make, like if you're adding kernel arguments, that's going to need a reboot, right? Some things don't, right? Like changing the SSH key. I think that for 4.7, changing SSH key now doesn't trigger reboot, but most things do. So, and that's important in a GitOps world, right? Again, yeah, this is like basically it's just looking at the hash. What's that?
So I just sent Kirsten a message. Hopefully she can just be like, hey, just there you go.
Yeah.
And I can share it with everybody and be done.
And then be done. Yeah. So
because she has a lot of great slides that like explain it all, but it's not like this is going to change your auditor's mind kind of
slide, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's going to act on drift. It does a reboot. That's important because in a GitOps world, and I'll explain why in the example, right? So, OS tree updates, right, with Core OS. That's something. Again, another show we can talk about OS tree updates.
RPM OS tree is amazing.
Yeah,
I'll just say that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so updates happen the same way, right? I was actually going to take the slide out because this actually has more to do with something else. But I
see the thing has to deal with,
yeah. So this has to do with updates, and when updates happen, it's rebooting the servers, and blah blah blah. It's kind of update the ignition, reboot the servers, that sort of thing, right? Same thing happened with the MachineConfig daemon. It'll update, write out the files, reboot the servers, connect to OpenShift, and there you go, right? So, sorry I powered through some of the last slides. You guys can take a look at that.
You have the slides? You shared them?
I sent you the link. I don't know if you uploaded them. So.
Oh no! If you sent me the link.
Okay.
When did you do that?
Well, I sent on Slack. I sent it to you on Slack. I think.
Oh yeah, you did. Sorry, I got it.
So we'll get those uploaded, and you can take a look at those, right? So I will. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I do want to share my screen.
Yeah, I told you screen sharing's being weird today, man.
Yeah. So I'm gonna exit this. There we go. And so, let me. There we go. I remember that you can move this thing. Oh yeah, there we go. I'm gonna move it over here because.
Yeah, toss it off to the side.
Yeah. So I have a MachineConfig example here, right? So is this big enough? Should I make it a little bigger or?
One bigger.
Maybe just one. Okay.
Let us know, audience, if you can't see it.
There we go. Yeah, pretty soon. Well, everyone has all the these big screens now that everyone's remote, right?
Right. I mean,
right. So like you have to put it like at 200% now.
Mm-hmm.
People with their 4K and their 32-inch.
So it's funny, like that big ass monitor I have behind me, like it's just 1080p because I can't read it otherwise.
Yeah, you can't either, right? Yeah, exactly. So like, if I'm like putting stuff like at 200 at some point, I go, okay, yeah, no, I need glasses. Anyway, so I have a sample of MachineConfig, right? MachineConfig, I'm going to target all the workers. This is what this label is. It's like all the workers. I want you to write this file out. I want you to write, foo and foo other, right? So as you can see here, I have this thing called files, and you can just kind of load all the files, right, in one file, right? I'm using version 3.1 for the ignition. So if I drop over here, let me see, OC version, let me sure. Okay, yeah, so I'm connected to this cluster. If I do OC get MC, this is the MachineConfigs, right? And as you can see, these MachineConfigs has all the configurations that you need. If you want to take a look at one of those, if I do OC get MachineConfig of the SSH, right, for example, this has, I'm going to write, it has, these a password module, and for the user named core, I want to add this SSH key, right? And this is the, based on ignition. And if, let me clear this here. If I do OC get MC, you'll see that there's other ones like kubelet, a container runtime, blah, blah, blah. And But these are all like glommed together into what we call machine config pools, right? We have one for the master and one for the worker. So if we get a machine config pool worker, that's OYAML. This is essentially everything, right? It says, where is it here? It'll tell you. Yeah, machine config selector, everything with the role worker. And I want you to have, 00 worker. I want you to machine config container runtime. I want you to get machine config kubelet, generated registries, blah, 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 right? This is like the list of machine config pools to use, right?
Yeah.
And then if I curl, let's see if I can remember this. Andrew, you may have to help. You may have to help me out with this. So HTTPS API. So first, let me figure out what my API is. OC
yeah,
get,
good call.
OC cluster info. So that's my API. So that's a little
okay,
easier.
Cool. That's much easier to figure it out.
Yeah.
Just copy paste.
Yeah. So copy this. I forget what the port is. 22. 3. You know what? Let me just Google it.
You got me, man. I forget like when it comes to port numbers and stuff. It's not 443. Okay, I have no idea what it is.
Yeah. Let me see here. There's like release notes, architecture.
API int officially, but it doesn't matter if they are the same load balancer IP. Waleed, that is too many numbers for it to be a valid port.
Yeah, too many numbers for it to be a valid. Yeah.
62, 322, 324 maybe?
Yeah.
23624 is what Waleed says.
Or something like that. Let's look at the doc, right? Installing on bare metal. Let's do that because ports. There we go. I see. Where is the? There we go. 22623. And that's the machine. Oh, it's internal only, so I might not be able to get this. Yeah, I might be able to get this. I could.
22623.
I could look at my nightlies.
Kirsten is looking for a link. And so let me try and find the OpenShift 4 security guide, page 3. Here we go.
There we go.
Okay.
And then that is
saving this for future use.
All right, cool. And then that's actually, let me go back to the slides because I think I have it in the slides here. It's one of these slides.
No, I don't. Okay.
Config worker. Okay, so it's a config worker. There we go. Let me JQ this because so that's the relationship here, right? So it is the machine config pool. So if I do OC get, let me clear this, OC get MCP worker, right? So this guy here in the end turns out to be this, ignition file, right? And so, which is the one big, blah of everything that gets configured. This is managed by the operator, for the machine config operator. So you wouldn't manage the machine config pools in a GitOps way. You would manage anything additional that you're just adding. So and this is the example I'm going to be going through here. So I have this machine config that basically writes out 2 files, right? And it writes out 2 files on our workers. Going back here, let's go back one here. But I have all this other stuff with it, right? So what happens when you apply a machine config, right? I said it a few times during the slide overview, is that the nodes reboot, right? The nodes reboot. So what happens if you are applying a bunch of kernel updates, and you reboot the server while it's rebooting, right? You basically corrupt your OS essentially. Mm-hmm. And this is the problem actually me and William were trying to figure out, because he had this thing where he's applying things in such a way, and he goes, how would you do this in a GitOps fashion? And the answer is actually hooks, resource hooks, right? So again, if you guys haven't seen, we did an episode on resource hooks. Is that there's a pre-hook, there's you know the sync, and then there's a post hook, mm-hmm. right? So as I'm running this, is essentially what I'm doing is that I am doing a job. I'm doing a post sync job, right? And I'm deleting it right after because I don't need it after it's done. And what I'm doing is I'm waiting for my machine config pool to reach a certain condition, right? Or it's just updated. So what I'm doing is that I'm applying the machine config pool, and I'm essentially waiting until all nodes reboot and come back. I'm doing it for the worker. I'm not actually doing anything to the master, but I added the master anyway. Oh, and actually, I see an error here. This won't be good. There we go. Forgot to update this. So the master, actually, this comes back quick because the master doesn't do anything here. In order to do this, I had to do an OC wait, and I have to create an actual service account for this. So this is goes back to, I need to create a service account. Then I need to create the RBAC that specifies the specific API extensions. And I'm just doing a get list, right? So this, and then for this machine config, right? I just need a read-only guy here. So when I run customize, it'll load them in this fashion. But then since I have where's my, there it is. Since I have a hook, right, it will run this machine config. It'll wait until all nodes reboot, and then it'll report healthy. So as you can see here, what you can do is that you can do like a cascading sort of thing, right? So you can have first machine config gets applied, wait until it's healthy, then move on to the next one, then move on to the next one, then move on to the next one, right? So if you have multiple things that you're doing, you can kind of do this in a cascading fashion, right? So then you're not just applying all kinds of stuff all at once, triggering many reboots. You could, one, corrupt your OS, especially if you're doing machine configs. Machine configs, you can actually really shoot yourself in the foot, like I said before.
Yeah.
We don't, it's like a rm-rf /
Well, I mean, it's not even that. It's like, if you screw up one tiny little thing, you got to start over, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so, and this is like less of a big deal in the cloud, right? Because you just, create another machine set and then you're up and running. But like if you're doing it on bare metal, like wiping out the disk and trying to reboot that. It's not fun. It's not a fun. I mean, it
doesn't bring me joy.
Yeah, it's easier than back in the V3 days when you have a whole rel that you have to rebuild.
Yeah.
It's easier because you just reboot and apply but it's just a headache taking the golf cart down to the data center, right? And so that's essentially
if your data center is that close, you're lucky, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If your data center is downstairs, you're lucky. So I have Argo up here. There we go. I'm using 4.6. I actually tested this on 4.7, but I was like, I'll just use 4.6 for now.
Yeah, smart idea.
Actually, I have this. Where is it? Yeah, repositories. I need to add the repositories. Connect. There we go. Repository URL, and that should be enough. Cool. Ta-da. So for those who haven't spent time playing with Argo, again, I have this repo. You can play with Argo. It's kind of a little mini lab. You can use CRC. CRC works on it. I tried doing it on the playground, it technically does work as long as you're patient enough for waiting, because there's not a lot of resources.
Yeah. Did you try the sandbox or the playground?
Sandbox? It won't work because you need admin access.
That's right. We don't have that yet. Yeah. Okay.
But the sandbox does work as long as you're just patient. Meaning, like, grab yourself some tea, sit down, turn off your phone. Like, it's gonna you're in for
clear your notifications out.
Yeah, turn your notifications out. Or if you want, it works on CRC. It also works on any OpenShift cluster. So cool. Let's create a new app. Let's call this. What are we calling this, Chris?
We can call this. What do we just call it? MachineConfig stuff.
All right. We used to do we did like for Spaceballs characters and Star Wars characters. I think now we're let's just call it stuff.
Just make it up. Naming's hard. Just stuff.
Yeah. So we'll do a manual sync, just to see what's going on. That's another thing. If I do an OC get MCP, right? Notice I didn't have to specify a namespace. It's because this is like a global, it's a cluster wide thing. So repository, my examples, and then I'm gonna do, I forget what I called it.
Yeah,
it was test MC. Okay.
Good job using AutoCAD.
Yes. Whoever did, I don't know who, someone, I remember it was during a show, someone said, hey, why don't you use AutoCAD? And now, like, I'm a big fan. Cluster URL, right? I'm doing this in cluster in a namespace. I do Argo CD. It doesn't matter because it doesn't need a namespace. So
that's not actually going to create one. I guess it wouldn't, would it? No,
because MC, MachineConfig.
Yeah, it's before all that.
Yeah, it doesn't. It'll ignore the namespace field
from the outside in.
Yes. So let's hit create. Let's see what's going on. Little ghosts come up. I don't know if you've ever seen this.
I've never seen the ghost. Cool. There we go.
There's like this little ghost here. It's like it's missing. It's a ghost. It's dead. So here I have MachineConfig. Notice how I don't have my job there. Because it's a temporary object, right? So let's click on sync. Let's cross our fingers. Sync.
Oh,
all right. So created everything, right? It's still in the syncing phase, right? So it's healthy, but it's not 100% ready, because what's going to happen here, if I go back,
it's going to blow up a whole bunch of stuff, right? Create everything.
If I do OC get MachineConfig, right? Notice how now I have my my worker foo MachineConfig, right? If I do OC get YAML, right? It has like all the stuff that I have in my repo, right? So that's cool. If I do OC get pods in the Argo CD namespace, notice how there's two jobs running. Let's do get jobs. Oops. So the worker one is
waiting.
Still waiting, right? Waiting to complete. The master got done right away, right?
That was very quick. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what I was explaining to before. Get logs for the master one. Oops.
Whoa.
It says waiting to converge. Done, right? The reason it's done, if I do OC get nodes, it's because I don't have to update the masters. So if you remember, if you go back to the MCO, I say I'm just targeting workers. I'm not targeting masters. So it says right there, I'm just there's no need to update the masters.
Protect your masters.
Protect your master. That's right. Here you notice it says ready, scheduling disabled. So what's happening is the MachineConfig is going on and rebooting all of these guys. And then writing out the file and rebooting, writing out the file, rebooting, right? And so this is what the worker's doing. So
wait, click Argo for a second. Sorry.
Sure.
Okay.
See,
cool. Yeah.
This is the little hook, thing, right? Yeah. These are hooks. And so OC logs, right? Let's follow this guy on the worker.
If you do an OC If you do an OC get MCP, you should see the status of the MCP conversion and condition on a different status.
Yes, correct.
Nice.
So here, I don't know why I'm getting this error, but this is like a false negative.
Right.
Yes, false negative.
Is it just because you're like doing a watch essentially?
I'm essentially, I'm
right.
doing a watch.
Like, I feel like,
there's
forbidden
some status,
because it doesn't exist.
Or something like that, right? It doesn't. It's like I don't know what you're talking about, right? If I don't see get MCP, right? There's a status here of
updating
false, because it's updated, right?
Updating. Yeah.
And so so here, if I do an OC get the log, so that's what it's the worker. Okay, so it's done, or was done. So this is funny. This is what happens, and I'm glad actually William's on. So I was actually working with William a little bit in the past few days. Because the nodes are rebooting, like my Argo CD instance goes away, so that's cool. And so I have to wait until it comes back. There we go, because it has to cordon all the nodes, drain them, reboot them, right? And so I just happen to be on that. So let's go here. So get pods. Yeah, and I think essentially it killed that pod, so it's just waiting for that pod to. There we go. Yeah. So while this is going here, So I did notice, I did want to call out there that they are changing the names, right? We're no longer going to be using master. We're waiting for the upstream,
right,
for them to do their thing.
And those changes were just applied in 121. So
121, and then essentially 122, 123 is when you'll see them. So I guess that's OpenShift 4.10, or something like that, 4.9 maybe, when you start seeing those here. So, and it's going to be like gradual, right? So you're going to get first both. You'll have both, right, labels, and then like after a couple of releases, then the master label will go away. So so there we go.
If you are unaware, there is a CNCF project for more inclusive naming. And if you're interested, shoot me an email or
there's a SIG group for it, right? I believe so.
There's a whole separate Slack and everything, right? Like it's a completely different.
If you're interested, definitely go ping Chris. He's CNCF ambassador, so
that's what I do.
So, it's what he does. So don't be scared. So that's what he signed up for. If I do an OC, let's go debug. Let's look at one of these guys right here. Node. Again, I'm not SSHing. Right? Remember? No SSH. What if I took away your SSH keys? What would you do? This is what you would do. So
exactly.
Never fret. I always do change root host, and I do bash because I don't like sh. So if I do here etc foo, there we go. You see it wrote my file out, right? And I do cat foo. GitOps is fun and exciting. Hopefully I don't have that other thing on here. I think I changed it. OpenShift is the best. Yeah, okay. I had something else that while I was testing, right? I had to.
Were you angry?
Yeah,
Were
yeah,
you
exactly.
mad?
I was channeling my inner Andrew, and I was writing fun things.
Like if you go look at some Git commits of mine, you can tell like the later in the night it goes.
Later in the night commits,
the worse the commit quality gets. Yeah. It's like, I am effing done with this.
Yeah, exactly.
Merge. Done.
And then it's just like a single character, right? Like Z, F,
right,
whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
That's when you know you're really mad. When you wouldn't even type out the curse. That's when you're really mad.
I bust out all the emojis, that's when you know I'm done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I will put emojis in my Git commits. If your terminal doesn't render them, get a better terminal. That's my opinion.
So yeah, exactly. Get a better terminal. Yeah, join the Yeah, this is fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. With the emoji, right? With the burning guy. That'd be
exactly.
So this is just gonna take a while because I'm just gonna do that rolling thing. But the idea of this here, as we're getting more and more, for those of you who are newly tuning in, I definitely recommend going to see other shows, because as we're getting more and more further along in this journey, there's going to be more and more complex deployments. And I'm going to be using things like, if I go back here to worker, I'm going to be using things like sync waves and sync hooks and deletion policies, right? And, as, things GitOps is so new, things aren't GitOps friendly all the time in the beginning, especially
right
for brownfield deployments, or if if you're doing refactoring, or if everyone has tech debt, right? Even some of my old applications, yeah. Even my old applications that I test with, there's like tech debt. Like I never thought that I would be deploying it this way. So you have to do more and more things like this. And as we progress, things will get more and more friendlier. Obviously, there's things you can do, things that are kind of hacks, like apps of apps, right? And there's and that's a show. I'm going to do a complete show about apps of apps. Essentially, it's an Argo CD app that deploys other Argo CD apps.
Nice.
And there's just some of these things.
Meta.
Yeah, it's very meta, right? Especially since, and I'll go over this in depth in that episode. But Argo CD, the top thing in Argo CD is projects. Is applications, and in OpenShift, the top thing is project, right? So they in Argo CD, the concept of project exists, but it's not it doesn't sit on top of hierarchically in like in OpenShift or in Kubernetes that namespace and project does. And it makes sense, right? Because your project could be made up of different namespaces across multiple clusters. So it makes sense why projects are, but you have to kind of just change your paradigm thinking a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like me pontificating about, watch some of these past shows where I do some of these, when I explain some of these things. And going forward, I'm going to be doing some of these more advanced things. I want to call them advanced, but progressing in the journey, right, of just syncing YAML, right, or just deploying a Helm chart, right? Because that's like the first step in a long process is infrastructure as code, right? That's step one. I'm putting everything in Get and I'm syncing it in Get, and then there's like the process behind that, right? In this operations by pull requests. And then there's like triggers and stuff like that. So I'm going to be talking about in future episodes about Tekton and doing the CI part of it, right? Because a lot, if for those of you who've been watching for a while, I've been doing a lot with CD, but haven't really touched CI, and I think that's a very important part of it. So
yes,
I do have some shows planned about Tekton and about using Tekton with Argo, and doing the whole process of essentially GitOps, right? Where maybe I'll have Chris. Chris, you've been doing fun stuff with OCS. Now maybe I'll get you involved. I'll say maybe I'll have Chris Short do a PR against my repo, and we'll go through the process of like, okay, he wants to make changes to the cluster I'm managing. How would we do that in a CI/CD way? So yeah, definitely. This is a shameful plug about you seeing my past shows.
Cloud native CI/CD. Yeah.
Say it and so. Are we so progressive, right? So cool. So I know you, me, Chris, we have almost a hard stop at the top of the hour, right? So we got
we do have to jump to a meeting.
Another
about a future episode, no less.
About a future episode, right? We have actually a lot of cool things planned. Part of this whole going corporate thing is that we actually had to plan out our episodes, right? So we had to plan out, for the marketing folks, our episodes, and this is like one of the plannings that we're doing next episode. I think like the first official episode, maybe I should wear a tie or something. We're going corporate.
Oh, that's a good idea. Bust out the button downs or something, right?
Yeah, the button downs, or maybe get a tie with like
a blazer,
or like a tie that has like like galaxy stuff on it, right? Like the space planets and.
Oh, there you go.
Like
you know what? I actually have a Red Hat pin that I could put on my Blazor.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll get that going. So, are there any questions here or any fun discussion points you're having?
No, I think everybody kind of like. Oh, Wally just said YouTube playing slow. Wanted to check if you had created a playlist for these episodes. Hope you did. Yes. If you hit that link that I just posted, I'll do it again. Hang on. Bang GitOps.
Yeah, there's also
take you straight to the playlist.
Yeah, GitOps archive.
Yep.
There's also the same Bitly, but GitOps does the same thing. So
yeah, it does the same thing. So it's funny. You created that. And I was like, I saved that for the official product. Nah, Christian doesn't care.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Someone's gonna come along and be like, oh, we need a red.ht link for our GitOps thing. And nope, taken. Sorry.
Yeah. So like it's you know what's funny, and since we have some time a little bit, and I'll talk about I have the email Christian at redhat.com. And every once in a while, like another Christian from Red Hat will send a test email to Christian at redhat.com. So I'll reply if it's
available.
Yeah. So I'll reply taken. So
what you're saying is I should see if Chris at Red Hat is taken.
Yeah. See if that's taken. Yeah. And see if you can get that.
I bet it is.
Yeah. So it's, so kind of the same thing, right? Red Hat / GitOps taken. So
sorry.
You gotta it's kind of like a squatting, right? It's kind of the domain squatting. So except I accept Red Hat points, right? So our internal Red Hat bucks. So there you go. So all right, cool. So I don't have anything else, and I know we have a hard stop here. There's not any questions here. No, I think that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, this was a tough subject to cover such a short time. The idea is that just to recap, don't be touching the machine config pools because that gets updated, right? OC get MCP. Those get handled by the operator. Operators, you're going to get bad times if you try to override an operator. Yeah. So that gets managed by the cluster itself. Any additional ones you'll definitely want to manage in a GitOps way, like I did here. So cool.
Everyone says great episode, so I think we did a good job. Wonderful.
Cool. Thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, y'all. So stay safe out there. We are actually off tomorrow. The whole company's taking a day off because of the current times we're in. So thank you very much for including us in your day. Stay safe out there, folks.
Yep. Bye, everyone. Thank you.